Hey everyone. So I have a LinkedIn newsletter called Expose Healthcare, where I expose the truth about the healthcare system and dare people to change it. And I've written a few articles there. However, in order to just diversify how people can interact with the content, I decided to put out a video where I'll be reading. I'll be reading the article instead of having people read it. Maybe some people would like that. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. August 18th of last year, so pretty much a year ago, I wrote this article in defense of anti-vaxxers. So I'm going to just read it, and then if I have something to say other than what I'm reading, I'll add to it. Given that I've administered thousands of vaccines to patients, you might think it'd be weird for me to defend anti vaxxers. However, that is exactly why I'm doing it. It's one thing for a stereotypical vegan, tree hugging, Prius driving anti vaxxer to write an article with many exclamation marks and curses about the evil of big pharma and vaccines. I have been on the other side of that spectrum and have mastered the art of convincing people that vaccines are good in the real world. Many people are on the fence, especially when it comes to the 50% effective flu shot. And all it takes is a little herd immunity and taking care of the old and babies around you to get them to flip. In my experience, that's not that difficult. But then there are the anti vaxxers. No matter how much I try, I will never get them to back down. They're convinced, they're staunch, they will fight till the death, as we have seen with COVID vaccines, to not get vaccinated. Well, here's my defense of them, despite my disagreement with them on so many things. I feel like this may be helpful for other supporters of vaccines in order to have a better understanding of the anti vaxxer movement. Um, yeah, so basically, it's what I said. I feel like it's hard to understand other people if you don't understand their perspective, and that's what I'm trying to bring to the table. Is it's really easy to be like, oh, those anti-vaxxers, or the anti-vaxxers to be like, oh, these like uh, pill pushers, but let's try to understand where they're coming from. So over 30 years ago, U.S. Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which made manufacturers of vaccines completely immune to lawsuits for injuries and deaths from vaccines. The reason this act was passed was because there were many frivolous lawsuits for vaccine injuries and deaths, which created a disincentive for vaccine manufacturers to create new vaccines. In the US, where lobbying is not only legal, but quite extensive, Big Pharma lobbied strongly to make this happen. To give you a scale of how much this saved Big Pharma, there's a separate fund from the government for injuries and deaths from vaccines called the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. From 1986 to 2019, it has paid out $206 million to victims. Now let's fast forward to the exact moment that the world changed forever in the dark month of March 2020. Italy and New York could easily have been filmed for an apocalyptic movie. The whole world shut down in fear of being next. Once again, let's talk about those lobbying dollars and influence of Big Pharma and the passing of the PrEP Act declaration, which protects all manufacturers from lawsuits due to injury or death from any COVID vaccine. Once again, the point of this is to incentivize Big Pharma to make good COVID vaccines without fear of frivolous lawsuits. As a healthcare professional, I understand this, and I don't see it as a giant government conspiracy to inject us with chemicals to make us docile, impotent, and slaves to the government. However, most people aren't healthcare professionals. Most people get their news from Facebook, talking heads on TV, or a myriad of fun websites online like QAnon. But again, in defense of QAnon and anti-vaxxers, I get it. I get the paranoia. I get the fear and the distrust. In a Gallup poll in 2019, Big Pharma had the lowest consumer sentiment score out of 25 industries, even lower than the US government. So, as a population, we are very much not the biggest fans of Big Pharma. However, when you ask most people about anti vaxxers, they will, at minimum, disagree with them and many times call them stupid or selfish. Honestly and ironically, at the height of my Bernie bro phase, I would have also had some strong word for anti vaxxers. I would have said some disparaging things about them. However, just like Bernie has always had a huge distrust of Big Pharma, most people feel that way as well. So, how come when it comes to vaccine manufacturing, we as a population all of a sudden trust Big Pharma? How come none of us think twice about the fact that for over 30 years it has been impossible to sue a vaccine manufacturer for killing your child? How come in 2020 none of us blinked when COVID vaccine manufacturers became completely immune, pun intended, to lawsuits? On the pro vaxxer side, because I want to make sure I touch on this so people don't call me an anti vaxxer, the strong argument is that vaccines have saved roughly 37 million lives between the years of only 2000 and 2019. So 20 years, vaccines saved 37 million lives. They were projected to save a total of 69 million lives if you go all the way to 2030. This was based on research at the University of Cambridge evaluating epidemiological data in 98 countries and was published in the Lancet Medical Journal. This makes vaccines one of the top public health interventions in history. What makes these statistics even more powerful is that most of the benefit has actually been in children under 5 years old. Most of these lives saved are kids. As a relatively new father, this statistic is definitely dear to my heart. Now, on the anti vaxxer side, like I said above, there have been over $200 million worth of paid claims to vaccine injuries and deaths in the US over the less than 30 years. So, how many more injuries and deaths have occurred worldwide where people don't have the resources to hire expensive lawyers? Also, how about the benefit that is being touted at 37 million deaths or the projected 69 million deaths? Since we don't trust Big Pharma, how do we trust these figures? You may say this was done at a top research university and published in a top medical research journal. Well, this wouldn't be the first time that something erroneous was published, i.e., vaccine autism research, which was published by top institutions at top medical journals. Or you could say Big Pharma has control over not only research universities, but also research journals. And anti vaxxers would be correct in that regard. I would say let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is my wife's favorite, loves this expression of mine, but it is quite appropriate here, especially with kids and vaccines. I get where anti vaxxers are coming from, and it is from a similar sentiment that the vast majority come from. We don't trust Big Pharma, as it is a lucrative and very powerful group that has influence over our government and all of us via not only advertising, which is very unique to America, only two countries allow advertising, and lobbying, which is particularly strong in America. If you think executives at Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J weren't salivating over the profit figures throughout the pandemic as their vaccines and other medical supplies were flying out of their factories, then you are naive. Back to the topic at hand. My goal of writing this article is to show how anti vaxxers aren't so crazy. Many of the people that you think are crazy actually share very similar ideas to you. Politically, there's a good metaphor of what happens called the horseshoe theory, which posits that the extreme left and extreme right are actually more similar to each other than the moderate left and moderate right. Trump and Bernie were perfect examples of that, and both of them had great distrust for the major institutions and government. Yet, you put your average Trump pickup truck owner and a Bernie Prius owner in a room, and all hell will break loose. I guess my QED of this article is that it is much easier when seeing something different to hate it rather than to try to understand and have compassion. 2022 is a tough time with COVID not yet over, the war in Ukraine splitting families apart because of views on Putin, and inflation and gas prices making it harder and harder to put food on the table all over the world. Now it's 2023. Unfortunately, things haven't changed that much. The last thing we need to do is fight with each other over things which at the core we might actually agree on. If you are a pro-vaxxer, next time you talk to an anti-vaxxer, either online or like the good old days in person, have some compassion and understand that they probably agree with you more than you think. If you're a diehard liberal, next time you see a MAGA hat or an American flag with a blue line down the middle, don't be disgusted. This one, this one might be controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. Even if you're a diehard Ukraine supporter, which is like 99% of the world, it seems, including myself, also have compassion for the rare Putin supporter. At minimum, you can blame brainwashing, but maybe there is more. Who knows? Let's all have some humility and choose to love instead of hate. So that's pretty much that article. We're under 10 minutes. That's nice. I was expecting this to go longer. Would love to, hear your comments. This is on YouTube. So do the whole subscribe, like, comment, but careful with your comments. If you comment too extreme on any side, you'll be taken down. So just be nice, be professional, be level headed. No cursing, no hating on each other. But if you have something scientific, either to argue something that I said or to support what I said, please also comment and obviously share this with your friends and family. Thank you so much. This is the Expose Healthcare YouTube channel, and my name is Steve.